So welcome back. Hope you had your coffee. So got a little break. We're just missing a couple of them, and we'll start. Okay. What regarding the article that we are discussing is very much. It is a contribution of many of those who have been involved. Many of them have been involved in democracy for years. And in fact, they also recognize that in fact it will be very challenging in order to make this, but they hope that somebody in fact will fund this this development and use of this data. But question, why Freedom House? Why don't they just take Freedom House's figures? They have been collecting these data for the last 30 years, 40 years. They have every year they have been collecting data from all different kind of countries, and then they are measuring democracy and freedoms in different countries.
In like the last session,
Mm.
how democracy is always evolving.
Mm.
I think it's important to keep moving forward and keep adding more like specific like criteria. So Freedom House isn't asking all 33 of those questions that we just talked about in that article. And so to be able to process more and more information about each different democracy and where they are and where they've been is super important to continue to like expand and improve every single democracy.
Mm.
That being said, too, I think there should be some caution when you're using other people's data to make your own argument.
Yeah.
And how, like, is the data you're using, did they measure it the same way that you're trying to portray your results? I think that's something that needs to be recognized.
That could be one, and that they do have some apprehensions in relation to that. But one of the main issues is also that they find that Freedom House is missing some what they find important indicators. And it's also that is very much that some they see it historically that Freedom House has been very closely connected to US foreign policy. So these two are intertwined. So it has been very much about how to say how is democracy understood in the US, even though it may be different from other countries. And I told you before, it's about this equity or equality. That's one that they introduce also into their data set. But I got some that there were some things we are missing, but I think there's another thing when we discuss about proxies. Then in fact they are missing in fact relation to corruption. Have you heard about what's called Transparency International? So every year there is a list of the less corrupt or the most corrupt countries in the world, where they are measuring and they are having different ways of measuring. But it's also because seemingly, and that is based on some of the research, there's a correlation between the higher level of corruption, the worse the democracy, the worse the functioning of the state, and in fact, there's the worse human rights violation. Some have made that there's a direct relationship between or correlation between corruption and I worked with the Georgia issue before. In fact, saying in highly corrupted countries, then in fact there's also a high probability that torture is in fact taking place. So it's also about trust in systems, and if there's no trust and just about things are very corrupt, then there's also a lot of other things which is related to this. So that was in fact one observation. But this is in fact for 2011, and I don't think still that it hasn't really come on. They haven't got people to fund, in fact, to make this this kind of collection of data and make report on it. It is still Freedom House, which is very much used, and also economics. What's this? What EIU, which is also coming with it every year. But I just think it's about both of these articles. What is the main thing that these two articles would like to bring in fact, to the study of democracy? The main.
I think
Yeah.
both want to see, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think both want to see like a reworking of how democracy is looked at and analyzed and talked about among, it seems that their main focus is just like scholars, and that way you can like clarify like research work. Yeah, one concern I think is that, yeah, never mind. They just want to redefine or repurpose democracy and the concept of it.
Yeah, and like you said, Freedom House is closely tied to the United States, and so you can see like a bias being, how do other democracies compare to the United States, where a lot of Americans think like the U.S. has like the perfect democracy, and so like organizations in the U.S. be like, oh, how does this different country compare to the United States democracy, which is a completely wrong way to look at it. And so being able to sort of change the criteria of looking at democracies and what makes one, really democratic shouldn't be so compared to any single country, but should be on a wide variety of criteria like that. The 2011 is like shown off of 33 of them.
I think that in the coming years and decades that we might see democracies that are kind of in that transition period, we'll start to see them either fall into an authoritarian. Oh my God!
I hope you're wrong.
Regime, or kind of progress to have more democratic ideals. And I think by studying and reworking the definition of democracy, like we can kind of like use these current transitional democracies to see what I guess conditions lead to certain different outcomes in different countries.
Yeah, but I hope you're not right, but it could look like that. But it is also about the democracies, and it's about the concept, and it is about that. One could say from a research point of view, one have to be very stringent in relation to using the concept so it's not misused. But in fact, one thing is the concept, the other thing is the democracy as an ideal. Then one would also like to, in fact, I think also one will have to accept that and quite a substantial amount of people, democracy is perhaps not so important. There are other issues which is more important. It's again related to this, because why should people in democratic countries otherwise would like to look for authoritarian rule? But I have had I've been teaching, and I've been teaching some Chinese students also from mainland China, and it's very interesting to to the way they just separated things. They have their system, which is taking care of all the political things, but in general, they can they can see that they prosper. They get safety. They have a government which, take care of all the political issues and things like that. And then, of course, everything it comes with a cost. And we see it also in our own society, where we have some and a number of people who some are directly against democracy, but in fact, quite a lot who disregard it, or for them it's not so important. So one thing is about the theoretical part, how to study it. The other thing, in fact, to live the part. But both of these, it's about to get some strong concepts and then, in fact, to operationalize these concepts. And it's just about saying, when we have all these things, now to bring in again the coronavirus, we are getting some information, and I don't know whether you also doing, but until at least a week ago, then every day you looked into the statistics from Johns Hopkins, where they come with a measurement, and you could see also, you could compare with the different countries. And then when you go into it, there are some weaknesses. It is only its figures, but where do these figures come from? Are they real? For instance, so the figures doesn't, they are not easily comparable. For instance, in China, is that the correct number? Most probably it's not the correct number we have got for China. So it looks very different. Talking about United States, there's so many, it's also about, which is not accounted for. And then you have, compared to, for instance, in Sweden, then there's some data which is coming with a delay. So some days it looks very good, and then some days it looks terrible, because they are collecting, they are not sending in the figures every day from all the different institutions. So you find, and then you find there's a lot of that, even when you look into these figures, they are not easily comparable. So that's also why you have to write a statement saying, that they are not, it's the best we got for the time being. And then when we live in countries with a relatively free media, then we also have a big chance that all the figures cannot be covered up all the time, or in fact somebody will look into it. So this is about the conceptual. Corruption. Any other? It's again about democratization as an abstraction, that something abstract, and for researchers. And then the other thing is the living, because it's again, we are all socialized into different countries where we have, in fact, different systems, or democratic systems, and we are learned to live with it. And in some countries, they can really have very complicated democratic systems. We are not going to deal with it a little bit later. But in some countries, you have to vote many times, because you also vote along ethnic lines. But I would say that but it's a good question. Is it a democracy when only half of the population who can vote, or is it a strong democracy when only half of the population who can vote, in fact, are voting when the general elections are in the country? And we know when in North Korea, when 100% they vote for the same, then we know that it's not democracy. So, and it would be interesting to go through all these 33 indicators, and then in fact measure it up in relation to our own countries to see how we in fact we do it. And I'm sure with that, if I look in relation to Denmark, then I would say, there are some things here, there are room for improvement. And as we had it the last time, it's very important that to see it's democracy also has to evolve. It's again, sometimes you have a system which existed for a long time, and then there's some good things in having this form of conservatism, but there's also some dangers in it. Any questions? You have there's a task for Wednesday, I think, as an assignment. If you have any questions to that, you tell me. Shall we make it the end of democracy for today? We are going to continue next time. There will be, and that will be very much about different democratic systems. And I will. They are not here today. I will try to get them to make a presentation. One can about Germany, how the systems are in Germany, and one is in Austria, where they both have parliamentarian, but they are different, the systems. And then one could make it from about the United States. Then I can tell about the Danish system, which is a different way. Again, a different way. That's in fact a suggestion. What? How did this was different from the other sessions? Any comments?
Yeah, I have a question about Wednesday. The assignment for Wednesday is, are you talking about the take-home exam?
Yeah.
Okay. What kind of structure is that going to be?
Yeah, I think it says.
Or is it, say, I can find it.
Yeah, I think it says how the structure is. It's relatively clear. But if it's still, then just ask me. And if more than one, then I will send it out on announcement. What? Yeah, but I would like to have some feedback in relation to today. For me, it's about now I have faces. That's good. And there has also been how can we make it? How to say the ping pong more easier? It's again how suggestions.
I'd say maybe have a few questions like set up beforehand, so we all come in with like concrete answers. So if you say like a question, like each one of us has like a viable answer to go off of instead of maybe coming with one on the spot.
Mm-hmm. Now that's sometimes part of it, isn't it? That you get it on the spot. Yeah. Anything else?
Maybe you could have, like Alex said, like also questions that are about like more general topics, like not just text-based, but maybe open up for a general discussion or ask like a critical analysis that is using the text to do something.
Hmm? Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Yeah. Anything more? So what lesson to this time was a little bit special in that way because it was very much to try this with Sue. So it was a testing ground, and I think in fact it was not that bad. In fact, I feared that would fare much worse than this. So are you up for it for next Monday also? Then I'm sure it will be more comprehensive, so we'll not be cut for almost 20 minutes every time. That's 1 thumbs up, 2 thumbs up, 3, 4. So we will do it. Yes. Then I have another question. It's about the presentations that you're going to have. There, in fact, it will be terrible if it was only me who was going to see the presentations. And in fact, what I would like is very much the interaction and the feedback from peers as well. So I would suggest that in fact that we will you all will have to either hand in on Friday. So some of you will already on Monday do some of the presentations and then get feedback from your peers. And in order to help you a little bit, it's okay to use, in fact, what you have made in the report in the first place, or the homework assignment. Because what I really would like to see was, in fact, that those that your homework was in fact would be evolving during this course, so that you, in fact, will not be jumping from one topic to another topic, because it is also a learning things in order to. It's again, we start out as novice, and then eventually, if we continue long enough, then we'll become expert and masters in the trade of comparative studies. I take
so the presentations are going to be submitted on Friday and then presented on Monday. Is that
yeah, that's
Okay.
yeah. But I think we will have to divide it up in for 2 times, because if there's it says 10 minutes presentation, then there should be left some time for comments also. So I will make a schedule for Monday and in fact also for Wednesday. Okay.
So we'll be presenting on like what we wrote about for homework 1.
Yeah, you will make it into a presentation. So based on some of the comments I had, and some of you have given a lot of comments and some fewer comments. So it's again elaborate on what you have done, and then get feedback. And it's very much about giving constructive feedback and say, oh, have you been thinking about this, or you're missing this, or how, so that eventually when you're going to make your midterm paper, then in fact it will be a much stronger paper. It is again, there's up to 2,000 words, and the last was 500 to 750 words. So it can be elaborated on, because then we can also see the progression, in fact, in your work. That would be fantastic. That's the idea. Yes. Anything else? Questions? And then you have a good day. I will have a good evening, and then have a good day, and keep safe. Take care. And particularly in New York, we are, yeah, it's again, I come from Denmark. Generally, we know a lot about what's happening in the US because there's that's in relation to the media and things like that. So, and because also it's affecting our own country so much, what's happening in the US. So I think we are fairly aware, sometimes even more than mainstream Americans, I think, in fact. Now, have a good day. See you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
You're welcome.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Yeah. Bye-bye.